Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cloudcast, episode 129. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
And I'm Hermione Granger, apparently.
What?
Yeah.
What?
No, really, I'm Rory Summers, not actually Hermione Granger.
Explain yourself.
So, previously, I've referred to myself as being Hermione Granger because I'm an attention-seeking SWAT. And of the group of us, back when it was just three of us before Sid joined, that was kind of
in the good old days.
A little, yeah, good old days, little gang. But then it suddenly dawned on to me last week that since Sid's in the group, there's like Harry Potter isn't really a 4, in it's like a 3, and then you've got some. So I put a little thing on the. What's the name of our podcast again? It's Polyhedron Collider. That's it. On our Facebook group. Yeah. That's the one on the Facebook page. I put a little match pairs. Sid's gone.
You say I want me at the door. At least, actually, I can't remember my own name. What am I talking about?
I forgot the name of the podcast.
I did wonder, there was a slight imperceptible pause there while you thought about it. Oh dear, we're off to a good start. Rory, please continue.
So I put together for a bit of fun, a match pairs, like you do when you're kids. You know, you match this and this together. Of the Harry Potter collective, which included Dobby and Neville Longbottom, and asked people to say who was who. And I came out as being Hermione Granger still. Sid, you are either Neville or Dobby. Steve is Harry, and Andy, bizarrely, you got a Hermione, a Ron, and a Harry. So
I'm basically as good as 3 wizards. That's what
that's what you want to take from that.
Yeah. 2 out of 3 of them are gingers as well.
I'm the end of game boss. That's what that's saying.
The end game boss. You're Voldemort.
Do you know? I'll take that actually.
I pointed this out to Amanda, and she said, Sid's not Dobby, he's Creature, because Dobby's far too happy for being Sid.
I love your wife.
And then she said, Andy is a Malfoy, and she couldn't decide whether it was Lucius Malfoy or, I can't remember
Draco.
which now, or Draco Malfoy.
Surely he's the mum.
The mum? Are you suggesting that my
Mrs.
man-baps
Malfoy
have got a little bit noticeable?
Well, I mean, no, I'm not saying anything about it. That's rude. That would be rude of me to say that.
It never usually stops you.
There's truth in that too.
So I said something controversial in the last episode, and I was really expecting to get some feedback from it, and I did. So about a couple of days after I posted our last podcast online, I did get an email off a very keen listener who told me I was wrong, in that I got the complete history of D&D wrong.
Oh, Mr. Tudor.
So nothing to do with my controversial opinion about solo games, but to do with my history of D&D. So Brian Stevens emailed in and said he reckons I've made some of it up, and I'm going to say, in my defence, some of the aspects he said Brian told me were wrong. I'm adamant I've heard somewhere else. But I don't have any sources that I can cite to back me up. So Brian says he actually began playing in 1975 or 1976. He can't remember when.
Right.
So we're off to a reliable start.
We're off to a more reliable start than me trying to remember stuff I've read off the internet. So he says it was the basis of the combat system was a book called Chainmail, but says that these things were like poorly printed, like homemade books with cardboard covers with slightly different coloured paper, and says they're like 20 to 30 pages long, that kind of thing. And he talks about an individual called Dave Arneson developing an idea of controlling individuals rather than armies, which incorporated role-playing and fantasy elements into the war game designs that they were doing. He said that Arneson then introduced this game to Gary Gygax, and the two collaborated on what was called the Fantasy Game.
Oh.
What a novel name that is.
Well, yeah, and
it was back in the 70s.
And apparently, the name came from Gary Gygax playing the game with his daughter, and his daughter saying, what was the best name for it? And she said, Daddy, I like Dungeons and Dragons. And he went, right, we'll go with that then.
Wow.
Nice.
So that was the first 3-volume version was issued in 1974, and says it was like really cheap. You could be a fighter, a thief, a cleric, or a mage. That was it. And over time, supplements came in, which introduced Greyhawk setting, which is like the classic D&D setting. Then Brian says that he actually came across this in 1977 and he says he remembers the monster manual being released, which he says was a whopping 112 pages.
Wow.
And running out to buy it. So thank you, Brian. I know I obviously got some things wrong, so I've misremembered them or misheard them, but there we go. That's a bit of D&D history from someone who's actually lived there and played it. Yeah.
Yeah, it predates us, sadly.
Brilliant. Thanks, Brian.
Nice one.
And thanks for taking the time to write in as well and tell us that Steve was wrong.
You stole my joke. You bastard.
He's such a swat.
He is.
The thing is, he's probably got one of those time turners there. So he went in the future, nicked your joke, and came back and has used it again himself. That's what's actually happened.
Harry Potter jokes, Andy just won't get them.
No,
I feel ashamed. I feel ashamed that I even know that, frankly.
No, I will not get them. So they'll just wash over me because I don't care.
I have a time turner. No.
I don't even know what that is. I'm guessing it's got something to do with changing the flow of time. Or...
It's got changing the flow of time, but for only one book. And then for the next 4 books, where it would have been really useful, they've just gone, let's just forget that.
It's a plot device. Right, got you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I said we weren't going to do any news, didn't I? We said we're going to cut the news section.
So here's the news.
No, something happened today. Now, this is Tuesday, 2nd of May, probably about a week before you actually listen to this podcast. But I wanted to mention this because I found this fascinating. So people who backed, there was a game called Six Siege, which is a board game version of Rainbow Siege 6.
I am aware of its work.
This was kickstarted by Mythic Games.
Okay, no Mythic.
Yeah, and if I can just double check, it was sometime last year, I think. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, it funded. It made 10,000 backers, $1.5 million.
That's
Not
good.
small.
That's a bit of clout, isn't it?
That's a bit of clout. And top pledge level was 269 for everything. And Sid will like this, and Andy will like this because there's an in-joke in our Coriolis game. There's a smooth operator pledge.
Nice.
Well, the news is that, I mean, we know Mythic Games have been in trouble for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of been a bit of a constant thing that we've been aware of. Well, backers of Six Siege have been contacted, and more money has been requested.
What?
That in itself is not necessarily, because a lot of people obviously recently have requested shipping fee.
Yes. So you
Increases.
usually you're expecting to add money for shipping fee. I remember Oathsworn into the Deepwood asked for like another £20 off people because they said to cover the increase in shipping costs.
Yeah, because of COVID and the shipping trouble. that's all
Exactly.
that,
Yeah.
Mythic have asked for an extra contribution of $245
Per person.
per person.
Mandatory.
Well, I don't know because I've not seen the full message and it's not available on the Six Siege Kickstarter page. So all I've seen is screenshots of what was put. It's being listed as a contribution.
So, all right, an extra £240 times 10,000 backers is an extra 2.4 million, isn't it?
That sounds about right, yeah. And bearing in mind that this pledge was $269 to begin with.
So they've doubled its price, basically.
Basically, and that includes shipping. Shipping is within that, so $78.
Good.
$78 of that $245 is shipping.
Imagine a holiday to the Bahamas should be included in that as well.
And what's their justification for this?
The justification is they can't afford to make the game.
Well, they can
Well.
f- it off then, can't they? I mean, if they're that bad at managing their own funds and budgets, then surely they can just they've
Kickstarter
overcooked
should
it.
be stepping in and having a word here.
Well, see, this is the thing that gets my goat, and I'm sure Steve will probably soon back me up once I start ranting, is that, see, this is the nature of Kickstarter and any crowdfunding. It is a risk taken on by the backer. If it doesn't work out, that's it. You lose your money, you walk away.
No, but I think the risk there is I'm going to put my money in to get this project off the ground, to get it done. And if it doesn't meet its funding goal, then I don't pay anything. But I think as Sid said, they should have better control of their budget. They should know, as a games production company, and this isn't their first game, they should know how much it's going to take to make it.
I agree.
They should
but
know.
things-
They should know physically how much it's going to cost for a manufacturer in China to print this game. and they should have a rough idea about shipping it as well.
Roughly.
So on the Kickstarter page, they've actually said that the cost of paper and cardboard has increased 100% since they finished the project. So it's gone from $600 per ton to $1,200 per ton. They're also saying the manual labour that's involved in China has doubled from $4 an hour to $8 an hour. And then, of course, there's other increased costs. The cost of plastics have increased, the cost of power production has increased. And they said that even though container fees, which is shipping fees, have dropped since pre-COVID, they're still ridiculously high to what they were pre-COVID.
See, the problem I have with this, right, is transparency, right? Fair enough, things have gone up, life in the world has moved on, right? Fair dues. But how much are they trying to preserve their margin? How much are they eating up of their margin themselves before they go and ask for a handout? That's what is not clear to me. I've seen other Kickstarters go around and say, look, we're going to eat this much in the margin and you chip in a bit and, you know, be really open and honest about it. Fair enough. But it seems a bit kind of, we
It's
want
a
to
weird
protect
one.
ourselves.
Because Mythic have been in trouble for some time.
Exactly.
They did exactly this with Darkest Dungeon. They've sold off most of their other IPs to other companies now, which suggests that they're not going to take much margin, or if they do, they're not going to make much profit from it. It's
Same for Hell. And I'm backing Hell. I think, I mean, whilst what you say is true, Rory, it's still not the nature of a Kickstarter. There is still risk involved, and you'll lose your money if it goes belly up. Simple as that.
That's fine, but I think a company that's we've budgeted for this, and I appreciate that things have gone up and they've gone up maybe exponentially, but then I'm also looking at, hang on, I've got a few other games I'm backing on Kickstarter, and no one else is asking me for extra money. No one else has said there's been 100% increase in paper and cardboard pulp. No one else is saying that labour is doubled in China. But everything else I'm backing has got paper and cardboard and is being made in China. So why is no one else asking me for that money? When there was the shipping freighter problem during COVID, that happened across the board. Everybody was affected. Everyone that had a game that was currently being published, that was currently being shipped, everyone had that problem. And they were all, that I was experienced anyway, they were all very clear with that. They were all very transparent. This is the problem that we are facing. Mythic are saying this. No one else I'm backing is saying this, which makes it sound a little bit odd to me as well. A little bit fishy.
I think a lot of it, as Steve says, I think a lot of it has been tied into Mythic's ongoing issues for the last sort of 12 to 24 months. I mean, it does come back to they probably can't run their business properly because they have in the last couple of years had a lot of Kickstarter campaigns, and I suspect they have gone the way that formerly Game Salute and other companies have gone, where they got to the point where, I'm going to say allegedly, because we have no proof of this, allegedly that one Kickstarter campaign was basically being used to fund the previous one. So it was kind of a runaway snowball effect. And of course, you get caught out by things like COVID when everything goes through the roof, and you end up in the situation that they're in.
Now, here's where this gets interesting, in my opinion. This funded, I've double-checked the date now, on 2nd of July 2021.
That's 2 years ago, basically.
Which is just a year after lockdown. So therefore, this was budgeted and kickstarted after lockdown.
Yeah.
And after all the shipping things had already gone sky high. So,
or at least started to go up.
Yeah. It does start to suggest that
allegedly, what Andy's just said is allegedly might have been happening. Allegedly.
Yes.
Allegedly. I do think there is definitely project management issues within Mythic. I think that's patently obvious, and this project is an exemplar of it. Obviously, shipping and stuff has affected everybody. Larger projects are going to be affected more because they take up more space. But a twofold increase in cost is a bit. I mean, I think it was a €5 cost of shipping on for Impression, which I've been waiting on for about 2 years, partially due to all of the issues with shipping and all that sort of stuff. And I asked for €5 on a, I think, €60 campaign. So a 12% increase, give or take, which is fine, and I can understand why. And they were very open and honest and very apologetic. And as you say, it comes back to all of that. But a twofold increase is horrible.
It almost feels a bit of ransom blackmail money in the way it's been presented. Like you've just said it now, it feels like, oh, you want your game, you're going to have to give us more money to have it. or you're
you
not
can't
gonna
get,
have
you're
it,
not going to
'cause
get
you
your money
can't have
back.
it otherwise. You're not going to have your money
Well,
back.
again, I
That's
think,
the
I mean,
issue too.
this is part of the risk that you take on as a backer. I mean, I'm not trying to defend Mythic in any way here, because there is obviously clearly piss poor management at play. But at the same time, as a backer,
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes. There is. I think no. I'm not going to use allegedly here. I used to be a PM. I know what bad PM's like. I'm not saying I was one, but I've seen it.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But I think a lot of Kickstarter, and we see this all the time, that a lot of Kickstarter backers are quite entitled and seem to assume that Kickstarter equals pre-order, and it doesn't. Shit can go south. Costs can go up. It's like your mortgage payments can go up or down.
Yeah, but you're willing. I would say, I think the expectation is you're willing to lose your money. You're not generally being held hostage to top up more money to have the thing that you
That
paid.
I agree.
That feels the wrong way around. Now, if you tip in 100 quid and you're gambling 100 quid, you're going in up front with the gamble, made it very clear to you. Kickstarter makes it very clear to you. You might lose 100 quid. Fair play, that's what you've gone in for. You don't go in and go, actually, I might get to the end of this, and in order for me to get my game,
I need to pay more.
I'm going to have to pay more money. That's a little bit off.
I was going to say, so I think ultimately my conclusion of this, I think it would have been actually better for Mythic to just say, do you know what, we can't do it, you've lost your money. And just hold your hands up and say, actually, guys, we can't do it.
Or,
Sorry.
alternatively, as per one of my little hates, cut the bling.
Well, you kind of can't when you're playing a miniatures game. That is the bling. This is a miniature. This is a shower of miniatures with a game tacked on the side.
I stand
That's
by
a
my
really good
statement.
point. They could rebudget. They could restructure the game
and recut their cloth to be something smaller.
Would you rather the campaign said you were going to have X, Y, and Z and all this bling and all these extras and stuff? Actually, if we cut some of those out or all of those out, can we still
Just
deliver
reduce the scale.
a game?
Yeah. I mean, you could ask the backers, try and gain some parity back with them and say, actually, guys, okay, we can't do it all. These are the elements that we can put into the game. You can have 3 of, say, 7. Which ones do you want? And we'll go with popular demand, something like that, maybe. I don't know.
So to give Mythic their due, what they've said on the Kickstarter update is they've said if you're unwilling or unable to pay, then you will not receive your game in October. They've not said you won't receive your game at all. They just said you won't receive it in October, and says they are trying to look into other possibilities to deliver your game at a future time.
Coming soon, new Kickstarter campaign from Mythic.
But they've also said that they are willing to offer refunds.
Oh, okay.
But they do say that it just says refunds will continue as long as they do not jeopardize the delivery of projects.
And there's that plural, so presumably that's ongoing projects and other projects as well.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Interesting, because October's only 5 months away, and it takes like
in
2.
October.
Yeah, but then like it takes a few months. It takes a few weeks to months to get it just from China to the UK or
I
Europe or
suspect
America.
the reason they're asking for the money is the production costs, because the molds have probably already been made. They're probably halfway through Chinese production, so they can't change the content. There's the ultimate issue. They cannot change it. All that money's been sunk into metal molds.
If they're going to be hitting October, if they think that's a realistic delivery, then
those miniatures have already been cast.
They've already been cast. Yeah,
it's a cash flow problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's not enough cash floating around in the company to pay for their commitments. Allegedly,
speculatively, other non-committal words that probably won't get us in jail. The Polyhedron Collider cast is purely speculative and based on absolute no evidence whatsoever.
Our opinions are not necessarily our own, but
not necessarily our own. No, our opinions are of those of someone else.
The origin of our opinions is unknown.
And often found at the bottom of a pint glass.
So we have played Wayfarers of the South Tigris, which is the latest game from Gap Hill Games and Shem Phillips. Now, we have made no qualms on this podcast that we are massive fans of the West Kingdom trilogy and largely fans of the North Sea trilogy. We have
I have news.
Updates.
I have a late entry into the news pod in the newscast bit. I don't know if any of you saw Shem Phillips and his associate, whose name escapes me, a co-designer. I think he did Wayfarers actually. So if anyone's got a box handy, have a look. It'll be on there. They did a podcast recently about an announcement that they are making. I think it was about their latest game in the South Tigris series, what Steve has just mentioned. But also, they are redoing shipwrights of the North Sea. Because of the universal panning that it has received, including from Alora, who she has played it. She bought it. Thought, right, we need to buy the set. We've got the other two, and we quite like those two. But the first one, not much talked about. There's a good reason for that. It's because it is, and I quote, "fucking horrible."
Who are you quoting there, by the way, Andy?
Alora.
All right, okay.
And she said it's just not a great experience. But anyway, it is being redone. So they're going to have a new Kickstarter or equivalent in the near future. I think it's in Q3, Q4 this year. And it's going to have new mechanics and a load of additional stuff inside, like the insert's going to be done by Game Trays and loads of other updates. So it's going to have a big box like all of the rest of their games by default. Okay. So that's coming out later this year. So it's supposed to be sort of redesigned and a lot less shit.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
Well, back to Wayfarers then. So Wayfarers is the first game in the South Tigris trilogy. So of course, Shem Phillips is currently doing these games where there's 3 games per compass point. Mm-hmm. And this is the first of the new South Tigris games. And so South Tigris is going to be based around kind of Northern Africa kind of region by the looks of it.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely an Arabian African feel to it, yeah.
Yeah, Moroccan kind of Arabian kind of thing to it, hasn't it? Mm. So this is a game in which you are, I understand you're playing explorers. That's where you're wayfarers, and you're trying to find your way and navigate via the stars. But what this actually means is you have 2 aspects of the game. The main board, which has this kind of, let's call it a track. For all intents and purposes, it's a track like you would get in, I don't know, like Sulkin or something like that, which goes left or right across the board, but has different routes through it. That's the game. I wouldn't say that's the main part of the game, but this is the part of the game which dictates the speed of the game, because basically once someone gets to the end of this, it triggers the end game. But the other aspect is what you have in front of you, which is basically your exploration of the region. And what you'll do is you start off with this little board, which has a couple of locations on it. And then you add either land, which is usually mountains or cities, to the left-hand side, or water, which is harbours and open sea, to the right-hand side, which leaves slots above these with which you can put the night sky. So constellations, comets, planets, that kind of thing, and the cards go above. So you have this little tableau in front of you. But what it actually is a dice placement game. You roll some dice, stick them on your board, and you've got several columns. You've got 6 columns. I say several. There's 6 because there's 6 sides on the die. There you go. There's Steve's F-up of the day. So you have 6 options, and underneath these will be symbols. At the beginning, you don't have many symbols under the dice, and what happens is there are several actions you can take with any dice face. Other actions have to be done using those symbols. So the actual number on the die doesn't make any difference. What it means is that die corresponds to certain faces, and you'll have to spend them. So for instance, you start off with a harbour token already built into your board. In order to activate the action that's on that harbour, you need to have a little sailing ship symbol on the column, which you start with. I think you've got it on the 6 or the 1, I can't remember which. And on the other side, in order to get some of the land token cards, you need to use the camel action, which you start with as well, and the camel is the 1.
Yes.
As you progress through the game, you'll get like little Tetris pieces, little cardboard pieces. They'll add to your little board, increasing your options. So it'll give you extra things that happen whenever you roll certain dice, giving you extra symbols, allowing you to do extra things. Now, what this game actually is the very essence of get stuff to get more stuff. Now, I will say that this happens in most Euro games. It's all about getting A to spend for B to spend to C. Whereas Wayfarers, it feels like every single action is getting something to get something else, which should get you something else, and so on and so on and so on and so on, almost the end of the game. Like you may find you want to do something so you can progress further on the track, which you can do after you've spent all your dice. You may find that you want X to go get another land card because you want to do that to get the victory point. So you may want the land card in place because you want the particular star constellation, because the star constellations will get you victory points. So boiling it down to its true essence, it's dice placement and really full stuff, the Euro game. And
yes, I suppose that's true.
It's bloody good.
Right.
We opened it I mean, we were late playing it in this house because it sat there for a while. And I think we played it 3 times in one weekend. Then the following weekend, Andy and Laura came over and we went, right, we're playing this again with 4 players because it feels like we're more players.
Yes.
I think it's up there with the quality of the West Kingdom games.
I agree. I wasn't really sure what to make of it the first time I played it, but I played it again and it definitely grew on me.
Why did it grow on you, Andy?
How?
Yeah, why? Yeah, how?
Why?
Yeah, what's different about it the second time you played it?
I think it's because I got it. I mean, you laugh, but there is a lot going on in the game. There's a lot of piece to piece together. I think it's probably the same problem I have with Weather Machine. I really like it, but I can't do it. Although I think the first time we played it, I won. Maybe wrong. I'll have to check. But there is a lot going on. Now, Steve said, you need these symbols with your dice to be able to do actions on the cards. That's half the story, because all the other cards have what are called tags, and those tags go together to allow you to do other things, and those tags will come together to form the end scoring. So you can either go for a collection of different tags, or a collection of all the same tags, depending on what score you want to score to. But you can't put certain cards on other tags because you need, on certain cards under cards, because you need the tag to go with the card that you want to put under the card. That makes no sense to anybody, and I've got a sea of dumbfounded faces, and that is exactly the point.
Might have to play that back at half speed.
So, for example, you could buy a person from the sort of central tableau, like basically a market, and that person might give you an ability to do something like every time you rested, you'll get 2 coins, for example. But that person has to be associated with a card you already have on your tableau. But in order to put it under the card, you basically took it under, so it's like the bottom bit of the card that's visible that gives you the action. In order to put the card you bought, the person you bought, with a card on your tableau, they must have a matching symbol, a tag. So, for example, a port, like Steve's mentioned. It could be either open sea or a port. Those symbols must match. If they don't match, you cannot do it. So it's kind of a combination of buying the right person at the right time to get you the abilities to do things, to get you more stuff, or you can pick up a card ahead of somebody else to get you the abilities to do more stuff later, to try and to give you more options about where to put your dice, not just what to do with your dice, but where to put them, because you don't start with many options in either sense. So not only are you building options to put your dice in places, you're building options to give your dice places to go, or to give you options about where your dice could go. So it's a combination of 2 things.
That's totally correct. Yeah, you need options for what you can do with those dice and options for how to use those dice. I think the other thing we didn't mention as well is it's also got workers in it. Now, it's not a worker placement game, but you start off with a couple of workers each.
True.
And as you progress along this track, you'll unlock more workers. It's basically the first person who gets to a certain point in the track gets the worker. These workers basically give you an extra turn, and you can use them whenever you want, to do actions on the board which are related to the cards you can pick up.
Yes.
So they can do extra actions that allow you to get stuff if your dice can't. And then they go on the cards, and no one else can use that spot while there's a worker on it. And when they take that card, they'll pick up the worker.
Yes.
Which means the workers are unbelievably valuable resources, to the point where people are swearing at each other for taking a card because they've taken the worker. It's like, I wanted that green worker. I needed that green worker. But I needed the card. Yes, but I needed the worker. You stole my spot.
Okay, so I've got a question for you guys. Can we just pause the podcast and I drive over to someone's house and play this right now? This sounds amazing. Look, I can be at Steve, Andy, I can be at, because you've both got the game.
Yes.
Yeah, I can be at your place in an hour.
Okay, we'll wait. TikTok.
Actually, you don't need me. Look, I can. If I just drop off the podcast now, I can be there when you guys finish recording.
That's true. Although the next few things kind of need your input, Rory, according to this
there
list.
is that. Yeah. I've just looked this game up, and I can pick it up for 40 quid.
Yeah, I mean, it's good value. There's a lot in the box, to be fair. It's the typical Garphill high quality, as Steve has mentioned.
Yeah.
Not only it's good production value, it's tight. I don't think there's anything in there that shouldn't be. There's an additional mechanic as well on the right-hand side of the tableau that allows you to either... because there's 3 little temples, I think, or kiosks or something, or whatever they are. they allow you to do different things with the dice as well. So you can either do an extra action or a little sort of basically a move along the Doom track. You could change the value of your dice as well. So if you don't have the right die to do something that you want to do, you can spend one of these little tokens that you've put into the mosque or whatever it is, and you can change the die to give it a bit more flexibility. Some of the actions that you can do will allow you to put these tokens back into these mosques, temples or whatever they are. And so everything is very, very tightly knit. So every aspect of it feeds each other aspect of it. It's almost like you're playing a David Turksey game, but without the
Brain
word?
burn.
Without the Turksey of it.
Not the Turksey.
And I don't mean that in a disparaging way at all, but you can always tell when you're playing a David Turksey game. There's always an underlying tone of spite. Whereas this doesn't have that, but it's along the same lines where every aspect of the game is absolutely really well connected to every other aspect of the game. So it's almost like you need to get into a cycle where everything funds everything else, but it doesn't really matter where you enter that cycle as long as you keep the cycle going. As soon as you break that cycle, you're
See, this game sounds right up my street.
And you can tell the point when someone breaks that cycle as well, because it's almost like, the gearbox has failed when it comes to their turn. They go, I thought I was doing and now I don't know what I'm doing.
you run out of
Give
money.
me a minute, everyone.
Yep, that's it. I've run out of money. How do I get money? Shit, I need that. Oh shit, how do I get that? Oh bollocks! And you're trying to crank the engine again. It's very, very well done.
You do have to restart it as well. Sometimes you've got an option to basically rest, which is like re-roll all your dice. And normally you're saving that, because if you do it when you've got only one dice left or you've spent all your dice, then you go up a portion on this track. But as the game progresses, it becomes more difficult to go up this track because you've got requirements. Like you might, and it is possible to actually get yourself in a dead end, which Andy and I both did in the last game. You get somewhere and go, oh, I'm fine. Hang on, I need 6 harbours to progress to the next stage.
And I have 1.
Okay, this is going to take me a while now.
Look, Amanda's 1. There we go. Yeah.
So it is genuinely, you do have to think ahead as well. You have to look at this track, and once you've started going down one route, although you don't have, it's not like a singular route, it often has branches. There will come a point when you need certain things to carry on, and you do have to start thinking, well, I have to plot my route along this track as best I can, because I don't want to get to the point when I need 6 harbours and I've been collecting mosques.
Yes.
And then the scoring, this is the real brilliant thing about this game, and it happens at the same time for everyone the first time they play it. You get so focused on this track because the track feels like progression. You move along the track. You get resources for going along it. You get further along and you get to pick up tokens which can alter your dice, and some can even just give you straight victory points. However, that's not how you score points. And it happens to everyone in the first game. You get to the end and go, oh, I was supposed to collect stars. That's how you get victory points.
Right.
That's one way of collecting them.
Well, yes, it is.
Many ways. Actually, there were 3 ways? 4 ways. 4 ways. Cards... Like the star cards give you points, provided you meet their requirements. If you don't meet them, you don't get anything. There's multipliers, which can multiply the star cards if you meet their requirements. There's then the sort of kind of set collection bits where you get for all the little tags that you get. And then there's also points for domination on the sort of the little sort of temple things at the end.
For them. So yeah, as with a decent Euro game, there's lots of places to get points.
Yes.
So I can't decide on this game from what you guys have described.
Because you don't get on with architects, do you?
Because I can't get my head around architects at all.
It's probably more like paladins than architects, if I was going to come down on it, both in terms of weight and, I'm going to say, style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Paladin. Yeah, so architects feels almost classic worker placements. Do a load of actions, get some resources, spend resources. Whereas Paladins has that same kind of thing. Paladins definitely has the do X to do Y, because it's got all the 6 conversion spots on the right, where you need blue to do red, red to do blue, black to do blue, that kind of thing.
You get that circle again.
Yeah, and you can't do the same action over and over again. You have to spread your actions around 3 different ones, otherwise you get stuck.
Yes, exactly right. That's why I
Yeah.
say it's, of all the games he's made so far, I would say it's most like, although not very much, like Paladins. In terms of the way it's played, the things you do, the way you fuel your next action. So you've got to plan ahead in various bits. And then again, there's a central tableau that everyone contributes to and puts things on, like in Paladins. But they are very, very different games.
Yeah, well, they are, but it's that moment. I'm sat here, I'm looking at pictures of it, I'm getting the shakes just from the art style because the art style is triggering me.
That's the Nico. He does
I know,
all of the
I
games.
love the art. The thing is, I think the art style is absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't get on with Architects, and that just keeps flashing back to me as to how much I hate that game.
Have you played Paladins yet?
Yeah, I played
You have,
Paladins.
yeah. Okay.
I haven't played Paladins. I've only played Architects.
Oh, I think
I've played it a few
you'd probably like
times.
Paladins actually, because you like things like Bonfire and stuff, and it's.
You make it sound like an insult, Andy.
It is an
I
insult.
think it was.
The things I really like Paladins because Paladins is what Bonfire should be. But in the sense that you only get a limited amount of time to do certain things, so you've got to be a really tight engine. You've got to think about one to do next, to the next, to the next, which is the aspect I think you'd probably quite enjoy, Rory.
Oh, okay. Right, Paladins it is. See, I've only played one of these Architects, these compass point games, and I loved it, and I do want to play more. So luckily, I know someone who has all of them. So, and we've got a bank holiday coming up. Andy, what are you doing?
This weekend, actually not very much. Again, live board game planning with Polyhedron Collider.
So that was Wayfarers of the South Tigris by Gap Hill Games.
On the other end of the spectrum, slightly lighter game, what me and Rory have played, is a two-player game of Splendor called Splendor Duel, specifically designed for 2 players. Now, whilst you can play Splendor with 2 players, it's a bit shit with 2 players. It kind of needs more.
think?
Yeah, it needs more.
We play
players.
with 2 players all the time. And
I find it's just a bit of a race. It's a bit more interesting.
Now, see, I think Splendor at 2 players is all right, but having played Splendor Duel and owning Splendor Duel, I would never ever play Splendor with 2 players.
Exactly.
Oh, these are fighting words because I've mostly played Splendor with 2 players.
Better with more.
Splendor, right? If you take
So
this
tell me about Splendor Duel
yeah,
then. Come on
go.
then.
Go,
Right.
Andy.
Splendor Duel is kind of like Splendor. So if you've played Splendor, it's like that.
But for 2 players.
But with
There's
2
less
players.
components in it.
But as I have tried to stay, I think Splendor on its own with 2 players is fine, but it does kind of turn into a bit of a race, and that's the problem with it. It's less interesting with 2 than it is. It's not bad with 2. It's just less interesting. So Splendor Duel is specifically designed for 2 players. They've added a couple of aspects to the main game, mixed it up a bit, and made it a little bit more interesting. And I have to say, it works. So instead of having the standard sort of draw tokens from the market where you just go, right, I want these 3 tokens, you're given a kind of, I think it's a 5x5 or 6x6 grid.
Yeah.
Of the standard jewels that you get in Splendor, and they're put out randomly. They kind of fill them up in a kind of a snake track, but you have to take them in a pattern of, I think it's 3 tokens, isn't it? Or
It's
2 the
it's
same.
3 tokens,
Or 2 the
and you
same.
can do as long as they're in a straight line, diagonally or kind of
That's
orthogonally.
right.
You have to take up to 3. You can take less if you want to.
Yeah. But isn't it right if you take 2 the same, you have to take 2, or am I making that up?
No, so you can. There are some other conditions here.
Right.
So you have to take 3. If you're going to take a gold, just like in Splendor, you only ever take 1 gold, and you use that to reserve a card.
There you go.
It also introduces a new jewel or a pearl, and the pearls, there's only 2 of them in the entire game, and they never appear on any of the cards. So the only way to get this resource is to get that chip. And then additionally on top of this, what Splendor Duel adds into this is the scrolls. And the scrolls are a fantastic addition. They just give you, if you have a scroll, you can trade in your scroll and take an extra turn and do whatever you like on this turn, whether that's buy a card or take more chips from the central market.
Right, yes.
And you can gain a scroll if Andy takes both pearls in one go, I get a scroll. If Andy takes 3 of the same colour in one go, I get a scroll.
That's right.
And if once the board is relatively empty, if Andy goes back into the bag and reseeds the market, I get a scroll as well for doing that. And those are the main ways, and they are really, really powerful. And using those at the right time, it's only this little new rule. It's really interesting. It's such a small, simple thing, but it is so powerful. And using that at the right time it's a game changer in this.
Yes, so you can like an extra go, so you can move twice, so you can take two sets of tokens.
Take potentially 6 gems off the board, or you can
cripple
do
your
2 purchases. It's brilliant.
But it just seems a little bit more balanced. Is the wrong word, but a bit more. It's a bit more like Split. It's a bit more like Seven Wonders Duel. It makes your decisions a bit more mattery, as if it were, your decisions matter more. As in basic Splendor, I don't know. It just feels like you're slightly less impactful on the game at 2 players than you are with 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think with Splendor Duel, it almost makes it like a micro game. Which gems you pick and when you pick them is almost like a sub thing. It makes that a little bit of a puzzle. Whereas a normal Splendor, you just go, well, I want a white, a blue, and a red, so I'm just going to pick a white, a blue, and a red. Now you go, I need a white, blue, and a red. Where can I get them? How can I see them? They're not there. So now what do I have to do instead? I'm going to have to change my game plan.
And do I need them now? No. What if my opponent takes them? Doesn't really matter. Well, if I take them now, I also screw my opponent, so that's good. So there's, as I say, I think the decisions you make, like in Seven Wonders Duel, matter more and impact the game more.
Yeah.
Because it influences your one opponent directly than it does in sort of basic Splendor. And I think to me that is better for a 2-player game than it is in like basic Splendor, where it really just turns into a race.
It also adds, there's also 3 victory conditions in Splendor Duel. So they've added new icons onto the cards, which are little crowns. If you are the first person to get 10 crowns, you win. If you get 20 points, so the point cap has gone up. If you get 20 points, you win. Or if you get 10 points in one duel set, you win. Which is really great how you've got these, you can be playing against someone, I'm going for points and you are going for crowns, and you have a little tug of war about trying to stop each other meeting their victory conditions. It makes it really interesting. They've swapped the nobles. The nobles are now, you get them, as soon as you get 3 crowns, you get a noble.
Yes.
And you pick any noble, any of the 4 you want, and they stay the same, they're consistent. And then 6 crowns, you get another noble. And they each give you a power. One of them gives you a scroll, one of them gives you an extra turn. One of them, one of the really great things about this game, it adds direct player conflict. In one of the abilities is to just steal a chip off your opponent.
Yeah, you just rob your opponent. It's great.
And it really focuses. Splendor Duel focuses on player interaction. It makes I can immediately interfere with what you are doing. I can stop you, slow you down. I can take your stuff. I can have another go. I can force you to refill the market, which means it gives me another scroll, which I know you don't want to do. So you're vying for, I don't want to do this thing, but I'm going to make you do it instead. It is a superb game. I'm almost to the point where, since I played a lot of Splendor, mainly at 2 players, Splendor Duel just outstrips it in every single way. Do I still need Splendor on my shelf?
Yeah. It's a good question.
See, now, there's several things you've said. Now, Splendor, the original, is actually one of my most played games in my collection. And I've mostly played it at 2-player.
Yeah.
But the things you're telling me are not making me want to buy this game.
Really?
Really?
Because I know that most of these things will go down like a lead balloon with my wife. Because the thing about Splendor is, I know Andy says it's a race, but I think Splendor's a race with 4 players as well. Once you start nicking in the end game, it happens. But you're saying a lot of interaction is things like forcing a player to do this, having 2 turns at once, stealing a token off them. And to me, you're making this sound more like Monopoly than Splendor.
You're not forcing your opponent to take a turn. Your strategic options like, well, if I do that, they'll have to do this.
No. What you said is like, I can do an action which gives me a second turn. I can do an action which steals a chip.
Yeah.
I can do an action which forces them to refresh the market. If I play the game with, like, for instance, if I play the game with Amanda and I had an action which got me to take a chip, then the next chip would probably be thrown at my head.
Well, I see that's just childish.
Yeah, okay, maybe this game isn't for you and Amanda.
But it sounds like that's broken some of the fundamental aspects of what Splendor is. Splendor is all about managing your stuff, and you don't affect someone else. That's one of the things about the game. Whereas, like, when you talk about, say, Seven Wonders Duel, Seven Wonders Duel felt like what was really a 4-player game and shouldn't be played with any less than 4 players, and distilled it and refigured it into this 2-player game. This sounds like it's added a whole extra take that element. Which
it's
is
not as severe as
Splendor.
it sounds. It's not something you can do every turn. It's only if you have a scroll, and the scrolls are fairly hard to come by, and there's literally only 3 of them.
There are only three scrolls, and you only get them. The most common way you're going to get a scroll is when your opponent reseeds the market. The other 2 things don't crop up that often. And then the stealing the chip. That is an ability that it comes on some cards. So it is like, this sapphire on row 2 has got the steal chip ability. Amanda will see that card's there. She will see it's coming. She will see that you are potentially trying to buy it from what you've got in your engine. So it doesn't ever come as a surprise that someone's going to do it. It's, she knows that ability's there. She can see that you're working towards it, and she could stop you. She can try, she can reserve it. She can do it, or she could buy it before you can. So it won't ever come as a surprise. And that ability is quite sparse. It's not on like every other card, right? It might be kind of maybe 1 in 10 across the entire deck. He says arbitrarily without doing any counting. Some of the cards have got these abilities. Some of the cards also have. Like some of your cards are then wild cards. It's a grey, has no gem on it, and you can, whichever kind of slot you put it in, it becomes a sapphire if you put it with your sapphires. There are others which give you another turn, and there's others that allow you to take an extra gem. So if I build this emerald card, I can then take an emerald from the market. It's all public information. There's nothing hidden, so your opponents are going to see you working towards that, just in the same way that I see that you're trying to work towards that noble. You've got 3 whites and 4 blacks. I know you're trying to get that noble before I do, and you're probably going to do it. It works in the exact same way. So I see where you're coming from, but because you can see it coming, a mile off, and because you've got a chance to dodge it as well.
Okay. I will say what's happened is when you first, the opening sentence of this review, I thought, well, I need to buy this. Now it's, I need to borrow 1 of your 2 copies and play a couple of games with Amanda before I buy it. And this is just Amanda's playstyle. Amanda doesn't like things where someone can get to something before you that you're planning to get, if that makes sense.
Kind of the point of board gaming, is it not?
No. But things like you've seen it when you can see she's blatantly saving up for something. Can I go get it? It's like, well, it's taking me 6 turns to get all that resource to get X, and then you've got it before me. It's like, well, now my plan's gone out the window. What the hell do I do? That's something she finds frustrating.
Well, yeah, I mean,
a lot of games, but
you and I found it very frustrating in the North Sea. What's the raid?
Yeah, in certain games, it's more frustrating than others. And she also doesn't like the Clank with the Clank style deck building market where you have a random selection of cards. Because it comes to Sid's turn and the magic wand turns up, and the magic wand is brilliant. It allows him to move halfway across the board, and it comes back to Amanda's turn, and it's refreshed to the bog standard Clank cards. It's like, well, I don't want any of them.
Yeah.
Why did Sid get to pick that brilliant one, and I can't?
No, maybe this isn't for Amanda then.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things I need to try it.
It's
first.
Steve. It is a perfect game to play in a pub. By the way. Yeah. Just, somewhere in Stratford, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Because it doesn't take up a lot of space on the table, so you can easily play this on a small 2-seater table and still have place for your, space for your pint and your crisps.
True. It's not very big.
No, it's really good.
Now, Sid, I believe you've been playing a different variant of Splendor, which I thought was the same game or a reskin, but I've been told it's actually slightly different.
Yeah. I play the Marvel version of Splendor.
That's with
the Infinity Stones.
Infinity Gauntlet thing, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's brilliant.
Really?
Yeah, it gets a lot of table time. It's just a really fun skinning of it. In a way, I think I kind of prefer it.
So what's different?
It's well, no. See, now you've put me on the spot because I've only played Splendor on the PC on Steam, and it's the dynamic that's different. Is I think it's the there's no nobles thingies, the special cards.
Yeah.
There's none of that, and you just effectively got the rows of cards in front of you and the Infinity Stones and special Infinity Stones, and there's like a few. What's the thing? Well, there are sort of special cards, but they're not the same. It's weird. It's different. It's fun different. That's all you need to know. And it's got Avengers in it. Black Widow's in it. Come on, just get it. Everybody wants it. You have to collect basically one set of each infinity color before you can win. And then you've still got to get points. You got to have like a green. There's only enough green stones for one per player and stuff like that. And special mechanics that let you get the green stone. And it's slightly different. And I like the slightly different because I think I like the skinning of it. And it feels slick as a game. Like the boy can play it. And I don't think he would enjoy playing the original Splendor in the same way. Partly because it's not very exciting and interesting because of the theming. But I think it's just a simpler game to play. It's just easier to get into. Sue loves it as well. And as far as I'm concerned, any game that I can get to the table where both Sue and the boy want to play,
win.
Yeah.
That's a game to have.
Funnily enough, with the Splendor theme, I didn't actually realise that the artwork depicted like kind of mining gems, then kind of making jewellery and then selling it, transporting it. And then the further up the tree you go, the more kind of high society it got. It took someone to point that out to me. It was you, Steve, actually, before I even noticed the artwork. That's how little of the theme that actually matters in Splendor. It's just symbols and numbers. It could be freaking anything in the background. It doesn't matter. I didn't know until it was pointed out to me. Oh, yeah, that guy's got a ring on. That's clever. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, Splendor Duel from Space Cowboys. I strongly recommended.
In case that wasn't obvious.
Yeah, in case it wasn't obvious already.
Steve's wrong.
No, I think Steve needs to play it now.
I need to try it now. Well, I need to try it twice. I need to try it once with someone else and then once with Amanda and see how well it goes down.
See how many bruises you get.
We'll see how quickly it is I order a new copy myself, basically.
Yes.
We still have a mailbag full of questions. Lorraine Compton asks, what is your favourite Free League RPG and do you think you can keep up with their current content releases?
Coriolis and no.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, I think they can keep up with it. We can't. That's the problem.
No, I can evidence my no based on Mythic Britain for Vaesen.
Oh, yeah, we haven't mentioned that, have we?
No.
Yeah,
we probably will, but that's my evidence.
Right.
Yeah, we have been playing the Mythic Britain book from Vaesen at the moment. We have played 2 mysteries from the book. Now, the book is roughly a third, new mysteries, new Vaesen creatures, and then new background and player rules. It's a good way to do it. So the first third of the book is for player-focused stuff. It's background about playing Vaesen in UK. Gives you a couple of new archetypes, basic character classes. The middle third of the book is new Vaesen, so you don't want the players reading that because that's what you want to surprise them with. And then the last third is some new UK-based mysteries. And we've played 2 of those mysteries. We played the Welsh one, which even though I'm got a GCSE in Welsh, I'm not going to try and pronounce it without it written in front of me. And we've played the one based in Hampstead, which I can't remember the name of either. And we have been really disappointed by them.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I was not expecting that.
The Welsh one, it's about a mining village in North Wales, which I ran because I really wanted to run it because I'm from North Wales. Both my grandparents were coal miners, so to me it felt like the mystery I wanted to run. And I remember reading through it, and every time there's a skill test in Vaesen in the pre-written mysteries, it writes the skill test in bold. And I remember scanning the page and only seeing one skill test. And then occasionally be another one. And basically it was same, slightly another one. Same. So basically one character is going to dominate the entire mystery. which is whether we can do that best. And in the end, the mystery wasn't very exciting. I mean, the core plot was vaguely interesting, but the whole idea of the Vaesen game is it's similar, based loosely on what's the one with the 80s one with the power plant?
Oh, Tales from the Loop.
Tales from the Loop. It's based on the Tales from the Loop system. It runs on a very similar system to Tales from the Loop, but introduces horror elements and has this like ticking time bomb is supposed to be built into the mystery. Something which, if the players don't do anything, this time bomb happens and it progresses the story. The GM can use this to accelerate things and keep things moving.
It's usually about 3 stages to that.
Yeah,
At least there is in Tales from the Loop.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
And these 3
countdown they call it.
Yeah, countdown. These 3 stages in this mystery were just there were nothing. And the way it was written was suggested the mystery was supposed to happen over 2 to 3 days. And basically, I had to try and cram all 3 of these countdown elements into 24 hours of game time for it to even make logical sense, because the players had already worked it out. In fact, you get the mystery, you get the handout which tells you what the mystery is, and you go to this place in North Wales and you meet the character who tells you what's happening. Your introduction gives you the lowdown. Ton exposition, as Glass Cannon call it. She actually gives away the clue which tells you what the Vaesen is.
Oh.
And if you read later in the book says there's another way which you can read this to get this clue, and it says once the players have heard this name, they can do a test to work out which Vaesen it is. So, but they already know this name because the main character's already given it to them. So yeah,
Methinks that needs proofreading.
No, that needs proofreading.
No, it's not proofreading.
That needed rewriting. That wasn't a proofread error. That was badly written to begin with.
As a source book, it's gorgeous, right? The Vaesen, the British Vaesen are sexy. They're nice to read about. Okay, there's some really nice stuff, and there's stuff that you know about. There's less known about stuff, and it's just really nice source material. The mysteries they can get in the bin, right? 2 out of 3 of them. I don't care about the third one, frankly. And we're doing a bit of a kind of a round robin, so we've got like a different GM playing after like multiple sessions, right? And we've now gone back to one of the mysteries from Seasons of
Mystery, I think, is it?
Seasons of Mystery. And already we've done one session, it feels better. And he's a first-time GM, doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah,
right?
He keeps sending us messages going, am I doing okay? Am I doing okay?
Yeah,
this is great.
It's the first time he's done it. But the mystery already is 5 times more engaging than anything out of Mythic Britain. And that's a shame. Is all the intro mystery that's in Vaesen, which is just a starter tutorial thing, that pissed all over the 2 in Mythic.
Wow,
frankly.
Really?
Yeah, it's really disappointing, and I don't know why. It shouldn't be like that. We're seasoned to expect more from Free League, and unfortunately, Mythic Britain has completely failed to deliver.
I would also say as well, coming back to Lorraine's question, I'm struggling to keep up with Free League right at the moment because we are playing less RPGs. We hit our peak when lockdown was happening and we were playing 2 or 3 nights a week. We're finding that as we're no longer doing as much stuff indoors and going out and seeing people, we're playing less RPGs. And we looked at the last couple of Walking Dead was the last one they did on Kickstarter. I don't think any of us have paid any interest in that. I mean, we'll probably talk about it in the next episode, but the new Coriolis book is about to come out, and that's the one I am excited by.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
I am excited for Dragonsbane.
Yeah.
I am excited about that.
Okay.
But that's... I don't know. I just feel like they've done what Modiphius have done, in my opinion, and they've oversaturated them. Like, the stuff coming at them, and quality, in my opinion, is dropped.
We shall have to see what Blade Runner's like, because we haven't played that yet.
No, true.
Well, here's another marker in sand. My Blade Runner sat behind me in a box in its wrapping.
Yeah.
I haven't even opened it.
Oh, I've gone through mine. It's thin now.
So has the shine come off Free League then for you then, Sid, a bit?
Yeah.
Or is it just
the publisher? No, it's. I feel like they've hit a couple of bad notes with me. A couple of games that we've played just haven't come off as well as I think they were. And it's partly, as Steve says, we're not getting the time to play. And that's a little bit, so I got a bit of a backlog. So now I'm building up a shelf of shame, which just taunts me all the time. And it's like puts
So
on there.
you've got that shelf of shame, and then you've got that bad taste in your mouth from the last experience, which I suppose isn't kind of encouraging you, to, inviting you back to go.
I'm not sure what it. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that, but I think I was so excited over Mythic Britain. I just thought, it was a real buzzy, exciting one, and I didn't touch it because I didn't want to ruin the mystery and things like that. And I just feel like I should have just looked at it and said, this is shit, and moved on. And just accepted it as source material. Because I think the books themselves and everything like that are gorgeous. The artwork in it, by Ericans and stuff is stunning. But I just think the mysteries have just hit a flat note. And I don't know whether that's taken the shine off it for things like Blade Runner, or just the fact we aren't playing as much anymore. And Coriolis, we pick that system apart rule-wise all the time. It's bust. It's a broken system. Looking at what it, partly because of its age and things like that, and its early year zero. But the adventures in it and the fun we've had at that game
Story's amazing.
Is something off the charts. Now that could just be our session, but when you compare that kind of experience with the one we're having with Mythic Britain, it's like a completely different company made them. Well, they was a completely different company that made it effectively at the time. But let's
move on.
Yeah,
let's move on.
James McCann asks, what are your favourite conventions and why? And which con would you like most to attend if money or time was no object? Well, it seems that I'm the only one who goes to conventions these days, so...
Well, the obvious one, UK Games Expo.
UK Games Expo.
We all love that. I think that's definitely my favourite.
Mm-hmm. I would say Aircon for me, actually.
Okay. I the last time I went to Aircon, I got frustrated because I didn't get to play mini games, which is annoying me. I'd say Aircon is a second. I really miss the Bristol one that Frank did.
City of Games.
City of Games.
Yes, yeah, that was like a mini Aircon.
I was looking through my photographs the other day, and I found pictures of us playing games there, and I really miss City of Games.
It was really good because we just got out of our hotel room, my slippers were on, I went upstairs and I played games for 15 hours straight and got beer from the bar, and they just brought it up. It was good. Now you mentioned it, Steve, actually, that was awesome, to be fair.
If money was no object, I would like to go to Gen Con.
Yeah, Gen Con.
Yeah, Gen Con. I'd love to do an Essen as well.
I'd like to go to Essen again with my eyes a bit more open about what Essen is as well.
Isn't Essen just like Expo on crack?
No, apparently Gen Con is like Expo on crack.
Oh, okay.
Essen has got this slightly bizarre feel to it all of its own. So yes, it's like halls just like Expo, so like stands. However, it's much more business orientated. So you actually see people having meetings, and there's lots of little meeting rooms off where you can see people doing big powwows about stuff. But to many of the people going there, it's a buying convention.
Not a playing convention.
Not playing. So you will trip up over people with basically carts of games dragged behind them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The other thing is as well, when you go to Expo and slowly people have realised that they do a demo and you've got to keep the demo to either 30 minutes or an hour, depending on what your game is.
Mm-hmm.
Essen, you play the full game.
Whoa!
Regardless of what the game is. So you can see a game and go, I really want to play that. I'll circle back around in 20 minutes and they should be packing up their demo now.
Nope.
And it's the same people playing. And then you circle back around 20 minutes later and it's still the same people playing. You're thinking, right, there's only actually 4 people going to play this the entire bloody weekend, isn't it? So I'm not going to play this.
No. Wow.
No.
Is it just a weekend or is Essen like 5 days?
It's 4, I think.
Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was longer.
Yeah, which is the days I have the children, so I can't, unless I take the children to Germany with me. But I don't think Essen is going to be a child-friendly convention either.
Oh, yes, it is.
Is it?
Really?
It's full of kids, yeah.
Full of kids just being dragged around by their board gaming parents. Yeah.
Well, no. The biggest stand is the Harbour stand.
It's the Harbour stand, yeah.
Biggest stands there. It's huge.
Yeah.
Right.
So
you've got massive versions of Rhino Battle Superhero, whatever it is called.
But
that'd be amazing.
No. It's just one giant shop. It's like when I went, and this is several years ago now, it was like cordoned off, so you couldn't see what was in it, and the queue went right the way around it.
Wow.
And it was just basically like one giant harbour shop.
To be honest, Habba make absolutely fantastic kids games. I've never had enough experience with a Habba game for the children. True. And they do it across the age ranges as well. They scale up brilliantly from like toddlers up to like, you know, the early teens.
To put it into context, though, I think it was only 2 stores over. There was a stand selling Viking-themed beer. So you could actually buy a can of this, and in big cans, this Viking-themed beer, then get in the queue for Harbour.
That's my kind of convention.
Top tip from Stephen.
Responsible parenting right there.
You go and play in the harbour stand, little Johnny. I'll stand in this queue. What do you mean? Someone's playing the game. This is a good game. Let's drink the beer. We're good at this game.
Do we want to do this question from Matt Loss and give his place a shout out? All right. So Matt Loss is asking, what tips could you pros give out to some of us starting off in the podcasting gaming world? And how in the heck do you keep such a strong schedule? You're saying all the right words here, Matt. I'm not sure you're saying them to the right people, but you're saying them. Yeah. So, and this is so Matt Loss. You've got your own podcast. It's Board Gaming Buddies, which I'm gonna have to check out. So, how do we do it? Well, basically, I'll let you in a little secret. You have one guy that does all of the editing, all of the releasing, all of the, you know, organising us to get together to do a podcast, and you have that one person called the gaffer, and the rest of us just turn up and just talk shit about board games for an hour and a half.
Well, I don't know. I think we've all got defined roles now. What you've said is not untrue, Rory, to be fair. Steve started this. He is the editor. He is the one who is the audio quality Nazi amongst us.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I think is a very important thing for a podcast. There's nothing worse than listening to shitty audio. It is really hard to listen to crap audio. So, Matt, get your audio right. Otherwise, no one will listen to you.
That's it. Steve made sure we all had decent microphones.
That's true. It's true.
And we've got our soundproofing as well.
Yeah, so. Soundproofing, mic booms, all that sort of stuff, so you don't get rattling like this.
Thank you, Andy.
That's all right. It's a demonstration, you see. On top of that, you have one person who does his homework and does all of the bump. Rory.
Hermione.
Hermione. You've got one person who backs every Kickstarter campaign, so there's a steady flow of board games to play. And then you have Token Sid.
Yeah. You have the diversity tick boxes.
Yes, we've got a diversity tick box.
I was talking to someone the other day about the fact that Sid is the token, and they were like, "What? Because he's Scottish?" I was like, "No."
I'll take that.
No. It's like, his name is Mr. Gill. You know?
We're digging a very big hole here, aren't we? For ourselves?
Like, just didn't realise that you weren't a pasty white boy like the rest of us.
That's true.
Oh, there we go. Diversity, as I say, we are an equal opportunities offender. Yeah. Everyone is an arsehole.
That's true. But I mean, in all seriousness, everyone, I mean, we've kind of fallen into these roles. It wasn't something we divvied out when we started this, because, I mean, if you actually listen to episode 1 way back in 2016, where there's myself, Steve, and John, it is considerably poorer quality and less organised than it is now. I mean, we have learned a lot over the 7 years we've been doing this. We have show notes, which is basically what we're reading from. I mean, our style is obviously very loose compared to a lot of other podcasts. This is, one thing that sets us apart. It's our USP, as it were. But I mean, one thing we do have, I think, is one of our strengths is that the 4 of us here have slightly different taste in games as well. We do disagree on stuff, and I think that is a good thing because it spurs discussion. Rory and I occasionally disagree on things like Bonfire or Steve. I mean, we've just had a disagreement there. Rory and I like Splendor Duel, and Steve is wrong by potentially not liking it. Those kinds of things, but it's just differences in taste, differences in requirements for the things that you play and the people you play with, and we all live in different places, which is kind of good and kind of bad because it means that it doesn't matter because we record this, but at the same time, it does make getting together a little more difficult. But at the same time, it also means we play games with other people and we can get their opinions on different games as well and bring that to the podcast. So there's actually quite a lot around this podcast that people don't necessarily see or appreciate. So there you go, pro top tips. Get lots of people, have some friends, play games. Done.
With the scheduling aspect, which is specifically asked about, we hit our proper stride pre-lockdown. So 2019 is when we did our best. Now, I'm going to admit, we took a hit with lockdown, and we're just about back to where we were pre-lockdown. But at that point, I was releasing an episode every second and fourth Sunday of the month. So I'd set the schedule, and I even had it on my calendar. I had a wall planner at work, which I'd even coloured in the second and fourth Sunday. So I could look up and go, right, we need to podcast this week when I'm supposed to be looking at what work I'm supposed to be doing. So then I'll fire off the email and go, we're ready for a podcast.
Priorities.
Yeah. The other thing to do is to keep that schedule, don't make the episodes too long. And don't worry about not covering everything you've done. There's a tendency to like play a game and want to talk about it straight away and talk about all the games. And then you come to like 2 weeks later and you go, what have we got to talk about? Well, nothing. So there's an element of like almost keeping things back. And I'd say the same when we used to do written reviews. There used to be an element of, okay, I may have written 3 reviews this week, but I'm going to post them one this week, one the following week, one the following week. To kind of even out that up and down of when you're able to play games.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, I mean, we've got on our show notes, which we mentioned, we've got 19 games on our backlog. That's games that we know we're going to talk about in the near future, and that's not including the fact we're going to Expo in next month.
Yes.
We've got 19 games that we've played that we want to discuss that are going to be interesting and worthwhile hearing about. But we're drip feeding you that we're taking the top picks of things that we think are going to make interesting discussions for us, and it's going to be interesting for you guys to listen to.
The other thing we try and do as well is make sure at least 2 of us have played one of those games. Otherwise, it's just one of us talking at you. And we found that having at least one person who's played it, and at least one person who hasn't played it, works best for kind of that discussion as well.
Because you get the difference of opinion, and you get the dumb questions from the person who hasn't played it as well. And that works. I mean, it's a lot like, if you remember the Fast Show, making a podcast it's like Swiss Tony. Making a podcast is a lot like making love to a beautiful woman. You've got to take your time, you've got to prepare yourself, and you don't shoot your load too soon.
Oh, dear gods.
That reminds me of a review I wrote years ago. This is before Rory joined us, when you were still a fan of the comparison between Doom and Adrenaline.
Oh, yeah.
When I said Adrenaline wins the 2 pumps and a squirt award for fastest finisher. And you said you spat your coffee out all over your monitor.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I remember that. Wow.
Andy Dobbs writes in, are there any publishers or designers that you automatically buy their latest title regardless of genre, mechanics or price? So we're talking Instaback territory here, aren't we? Yeah. And yes, there are. Myself, it's going to have to be Eagle Gryphon, Vital Lacerda, Final Frontier games, mostly the sort of the 5 Realms games like Cavern Tavern and Rise to Nobility and all that lot. And also anything by A Games, or a lot of the stuff by A Games. They're a sort of small Hungarian publishers. So these are the people who did Ave Roma and Impression, which I've recently received. So that sort of thing, because they're really well priced, and they do all their publication in Europe. So all of the, usually until COVID at least, all of their campaigns are like 6 months long. So you'll back the game, you'll get it, and just 6 months later, because they're only producing it in Europe, it only needs to cross the English Channel, and there's a man with a van driving it across, Hungary, Poland, and France, and you get your game much, much quicker, so it doesn't have to go through all the China shenanigans. So those 3 for me are, pretty much, it's in. Mostly the Serda. I mean, I don't even need to think about it. Done.
See, for me, I'm on a bit of a Martin Wallace kick at the moment, so I'm collecting a lot of his back catalogue, which is extensive. But yeah, the new Martin Wallace game I'm really keen on, and I'm hunting down his other ones on good deals. So yeah, he's one. And I noticed that actually a lot of my collection, I've got a lot of leader games. I tend to buy a lot of leader games, and I also tend to get a lot of Alley Cat games as well.
They are.
It's
good.
not obviously that is conscious. I'm not going, oh, it's an Alley Cat game. It's a leader game, but my collection does have that. They're quite prominent on my collection.
Have you tried Tinner's Trail? Because that's Martin Wallace and Alley Cat.
I know it is. I know.
There you go. Just dangle that little carrot in front of you.
No, I've not tried that one yet. I've just picked. I've got London the other week.
Excellent choice.
I got Via Nebula last month. I had to get that ship from America, and that is a tremendous game. I'm so glad I've got it. And I'm really gutted that it's not on the list. It's not on the show notes of games to talk about, because I don't want to talk about how great this game is when you can't buy it anymore, because I feel that's just going to piss everybody off.
Yeah, rub it in people say, I'm getting this game.
I absolutely love that game. Absolutely love that game, but you can't buy it. So I'm not going to tell you how great it is. Those are for me.
I don't think I've got one I instantly buy anymore. It used to be FFG, Fantasy Flight Games. I would buy basically every game they did, or at least I would know someone, if I didn't buy one of the games, someone else would be buying it and I know I'd play it.
Me.
But that was, well,
Yeah.
I think even before that, even before me and
Yeah.
you were playing games, it's like the Worcester group. And I think they've definitely lost their shine for one reason or another. David Turtsey, not necessarily David Turtsey as a designer, but David Turtsey Mind Clash.
Yeah.
I have backed the last 3 games he's done with them. So
Likewise.
I mean, yeah, that's probably one I'm going for as well. And it used to be Eric Lang games as well. Eric Lang and Simon. I bought all the Eric Lang and Simon games.
It's
But
true,
again,
you
that
have,
was
yeah.
designer and publisher, not necessarily a designer or a publisher, but the two combined.
Who's the designer of Dark Ages?
That is Adam
Kopinski.
Kopinski.
Adam Kopinski. If that name pops up, it's always like, well, that's game's worth have a look as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say, actually,
definitely.
because one publisher I forgot on my list was Awakened Realms. They usually get my attention. I haven't backed everything they've done because I don't have Great Wall and a couple of others like Dark Ages, but
Dark Ages is Golden Dice.
yes, oh, is it? Oh, it is. Yes, you're right. But it's still Adam Kopinski. Anyway, one of the two. But yeah, they are certain probably to get my attention, at least, even if I don't back them. They're worth a look. And again, David Turksey is got a pretty good track record with us. We do like Big Davey T. It was for me Stonemaier as well back in the day, but they've gone off the boil for me for the last few games.
You mentioned Braincrack, actually. Yeah, I think I've got every Braincrack game ever released.
Really?
So I think I've got. Yeah, no, I'm sure I've got all of them.
So there you go. There's quite a few, but yeah, some pretty. Actually, City of Kings, City of Games. Yeah, Frank West. He's a pretty hot topic, and having played Isle of Cats recently, that's going to be pretty hard to refuse. Actually, once that comes out, that's a pretty good game.
Mike Nud. I think I've got every Mike Nud game as well.
So there's quite a long list actually there, man.
The more I think
good
about
question.
it, the more it goes. Yeah. He says, with his microphone resting on a Mike Nud game. So.
Right, I think that'll do us for today. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back very soon. Our next episode will be our UK Games Expo preview. So please let us know if you're excited for anything particular games or aspect of the expo. We should be doing a live podcast on the Saturday. I still don't have the exact details yet, but we will mention it in the next podcast and we'll be plastering it all over social media, so don't worry about that. Hi there, folks. Future Steve here in the editing booth, and I've just found out that we are definitely on for UK Games Expo. We are going to be in the NEC Piazza 4 on Saturday from 10 to 11, so please come along and hurl insults at Andy. We're all over Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. Just look for Polyhedra and Collider. We're also on Board Game Geek Guild 2726. So for now, happy gaming.
It's all right. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.